Good morning. I'm Scott Leslie, Director of the Albany County Veteran Service Bureau. Welcome to our Honor of Veterans ceremony for the month of November. We're paying tribute to Andrew Pinkney Sr. and Andrew Pinkney Jr. Andrew Pinkney Sr. served in the Army Air Corps during World War II. Andrew Pinkney Jr. served in the Marine Corps during Vietnam. Before we start the program, I'd like to thank Tim McSweeney with the Ancient Order of the Hibernians and Jerry Collins from the Knights of Columbus for allowing us to hold the ceremony here, as well as the veteran community, the county executive, our congressmen, and other elected officials for their support. Thank you. We'll start the ceremony by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Congressman McNulty, and we will remain standing for the invocation led by Gold Star Mother, Reverend Charlene Robbins.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Charlene.
Okay. May we have a moment of silence for U.S. Army Air Corps Andrew M. Pinkney Sr. and U.S. Marine Corps Andrew M. Pinkney Jr., father and son, both dedicated to God and country. After leaving the military, they lived by the values etched into every soldier during basic training, by continuing to serve their family, their church, and their community with respect, honor, and integrity. May we too carry on this legacy of service to others, providing new generations with the awareness of the true cost of war and the infinite values of dedication to God, America, and her ideals, ideals which bring the best of our human spirits into experience. Today we lift up our voices to express our gratitude to the Pinkneys and to our military for their dedication to these ideals of freedom and liberty. We ask God to watch over the Pinkney family, as well as all of our veterans and their families. Remind us always that peace and possibility can and will triumph, now and forever, as we remain one nation under God. God bless our veterans. God bless America. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd like to start off by recognizing several dignitaries and supporters that we have in the audience today, in no particular order, including Albany County Executive Dan McCoy, Albany County Comptroller Sue Rizzo, Congressman Paul Tonko, retired Congressman Mike McNulty, State Senator Jake Ashby, Madam Chairwoman Joanne Cunningham, Albany County Legislature, County Clerk Bruce Hidley, Assembly Member Pat Fahey, Legislator Ellen Rosano, Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan, Colonel Schultz, Commander of the Waterlead Arsenal, representatives from Rolling Thunder Chapter 5, Jen Stiletto-Smith from the Veterans Administration, Lieutenant Colonel Hutchinson, future Commander, Albany JROTC, Don Dugan. Mike Breslin is also here today representing his brother Neil, Legislator Matt Miller, Rich Goldenberg from the New York Army National Guard's PA office, Susan Lilliard. Joining us today from the family, a few mentioned, we have Peggy Gaudette, husband Jim, we have grandchildren Jimmy, Marie, Matt, Charles, and his wife Katie, sisters-in-law Kelly, Erin, and Shannon, as long as Beth and Stephen Finkel. Presiding over today's ceremony is the Albany County Executive Daniel P. McCoy. The Honor of Veteran program began in 1993 by Congressman McNulty and former County Executive Mike Hoblich. This program continues with the cooperation and support of the County Executive McCoy and Congressman Tonko, who provides a flag that has flown over our nation's capital for our honored veterans. When the Honor of Veteran program was started, a committee was formed of distinguished veterans from various veteran organizations to select our honorees. Their task isn't easy, and I'd like to take a moment to thank them. The members include John Ardilillo, Jerry Perry, Peter Noonan, and Mark Rosenzweig. Now to make some remarks and present a proclamation to the family in honor of Andrew Pinkney Jr. and Andrew Pinkney Sr., I have the pleasure to introduce a fellow combat veteran who is still currently serving in the Army National Guard, Albany County Executive Daniel P. McCoy.
It's an honor just to even look out and see the family that's here. We could have filled the place up with just the family. Is it true the bar opens up after this?
Yes.
Okay. Tony, we're going to be late going to our next event. You know, how do you sum up two extraordinary people, father and son? Father who served his country during World War II, son during Vietnam, and to follow in his father's footsteps in the military. And as you know, I look around the room, and you know, we have the honor of having Mike Breslin here with us, former county executive, but West Point grad, Vietnam veteran himself. And we have Senator Ashby, same thing. And I look out at the military personnel that are here that put that uniform on. Ross, my old boss. Yes, I did work for her. She was a little tough. Colonel back there retired. And the people that still wear the uniform. And what makes it unique is the bonding that comes together by putting that uniform on to all the veterans that are here, to people that served, whether you're a combat vet or a veteran, whatever your MOS was, your skill set, you gave back. You raised your right hand and you joined the military, and you said, you know, you'd give your life up, because it sure as hell wasn't for the money. It wasn't for the medals. It wasn't for the uniforms, except for the Marines. But, sorry, I gotta take my shot at the Marine Corps. A little bit. I know you're, but it's just the friendships that come out of it, the bonding that comes out of it, you know, we talk about self-service, integrity, sacrifice, the loyalty. Only people that put that uniform on really truly understand that, what it means to stand by somebody in the good, the bad, and the ugly times, to not waver on them, to stand by them regardless of the situation, right? You learn that in the military, the foundation. Senator Ashby gets that, you know, everyone here does. You know, it's the toughest thing. And it's a bond that you never forget. We joke and say in the military, the backbone of the military is the NCO Corps. You know, and it's the same thing what someone does and chooses to do with their life. To have the father in World War II from February 20th, 1943 to November 10th, 1945 in Europe. He was awarded the European and Middle Eastern Ribbon with 2 stars after his service. And this is what always kind of makes me chuckle, and I step back and I say this to the cadets from Walmedy High School. These veterans have the right to come back and live just a quiet life, to just fall back and be a fabric of the community. And yet you see time and time and time again them giving back. Never bitching, never belly aching, maybe to their spouses when we're alone. We got to take it out on somebody, the kids a little bit. But in the community, you know, when I see the Lafayette Park and I see what the Vietnam vets do continuously after the way they were treated when they came home, but yet still give back to the community and lead by example. Without saying anything, without talking about their stories, without talking about it, I'm going to pick on Mike Breslin for a minute. You wouldn't even know he served because he never talks about it. Not that he's ashamed of it, but that's something he did, serving West Point and coming out of West Point and serving for his country. You wouldn't even realize some of the people you interact with were in the service, because you know, it's something they take pride in, and they did because they want to do it. And that's what you got to have, this family. And you see the tradition in families of people following in their father's footsteps or their mother's footsteps or their sisters or their brothers, and continuing on to serve. And you look at what Andrew did after being in the service, after World War II. He was an attorney, examiner for New York State Legislative Bill Drafting Commission, later assistant district attorney, and after that, the public defender. Andrew also served as counsel to the City and County and Civil Service Commission and Hudson River Regulation District. He was a member of the Catholic War Veterans, Knights of Columbus, Albany Elks Club, and former president of Sons of St. Patrick's. Most importantly, he enjoyed spending time with his family, reading, listening to music, and watching his children and grandchildren, we got quite a few grandchildren here, playing, which is the nicest honor when you can sit back and watch your kids raise their family. I kind of remind my daughter, my granddaughter at times, I'm like, hey, the days are gone. I can do whatever I want now. I can just spoil it and I don't care what happens. Not meaning like, you know, here you can have a piece of candy. I don't care if you bounce off the walls. But it just says a lot about his character. And it says a lot about the two characters, you know, of Junior and Senior, of what they did. And Andrew Jr. was born in December 1944 in Albany, New York, and served in the United States Marine Corps from June 20th, 1966 to July 24th, 68 in Vietnam. He was awarded the Purple Heart Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Veteran Service Medal with 1 star, and the Veteran Campaign Medal. And I will not say this lightly about the Marine Corps. It's not easy to earn medals. Trust me. When I served in Iraq, when I was embedded with a bunch of Marines, that's why I pick on them, because they picked on me a lot. But I can assure you, they took good care of me. But for them to get awarded a medal, it's an act of Congress, the way the regs are written for them, and I can assure you that he earned all them, and if he was in any other branch, you probably would have had 30 of them to go with 1 ribbon in the Marine Corps. That's the only nicest thing I'm going to say about you Marines. That's it. But you look after his service. Central News, he worked for in the late 70s, retired from the U.S. Postal Service in 06 after 20 years of service. And he was a fan of the New York Yankees and the Atlantic Falcons. Avid reader, he was a golfer, appreciated traveling with his family. Their legacy will live on. And I always say this, it's about the grandchildren, it's about keeping the stories alive. I always said to somebody, when they lose a loved one, don't stop talking about them. And if you have a friend that lost a loved one, don't be afraid to bring that name up, because they say time heals wounds, and I always say BS. You just stop talking about the person. You just stop bringing it up because you don't want to hurt their feelings, or you think you're going to make them upset at Christmas or Thanksgiving or for whatever party you're having at your house or get together. Talk about them, the good stories, the funny stories, pick on them, make everyone laugh, when they did something stupid or when they did something good, and, the humor, but also about the impact they had on your life to bring to the next generation, to let them know what their, grandfather was like, their friends. And that's what you kind of get at the Hibernian Hall and organizations like this. It's like people come here and you take care of one another. And that's honestly why I started a Living Veteran, because I started hearing stories. And I'm like, this person helped me, or they did this, or they did that, or they had this impact on my life. And I'm like, oh, wow, did you ever talk to them about it? And the answer was always no. They're like, well, I didn't really say anything. That's why I always say, don't look up to politicians, stars, professional anything. It's your neighbors. It's people that have served their country, that are people you should be looking up to, that lead by example. I always say words are words, actions are actions, but actions speak louder than words. Because you can promise anyone anything and tell them, give them the best advice in the world, as my kids say, because I think I'm the dumbest guy going. But it's the actions. And that's what you get at father and son here. That they just led. They served, they led, they came back and lived extraordinary lives and left behind a beautiful family and wife that is going to carry that legacy on. So don't forget, it's an honor to stand here to say extraordinary things about 2 extraordinary people, and just to touch the tip of the iceberg. But again, thank you for giving us this honor in the county. I got some proclamations for you, and I do want to say thank you. I got 2 sets, senior and junior. You can't go wrong.
Thank you.
Here's the seniors and here's the juniors.
Seniors. Junior here. You know what? I'm gonna let you divide it. There's too many in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Next, I'd like to invite Congressman Paul Tonko up to speak.
Thank you, Scott, and good morning. Good morning, everyone. Always a cherished opportunity to say thank you posthumously to those who have served this nation in uniform, who do that with great selflessness, great fortitude, resilience, determination, strength, and undeniable patriotism. And so as we gather here today, we say thank you to all of those veterans, but in particular today, in a rather unique setting, to be able to say thank you to a father and son team that obviously showed great love of country as they offered themselves in service through uniform to this nation. So two men of great distinction, Andrew M. Pinkney Sr. and Andrew M. Pinkney Jr., deserve our great attention today and our thanks for serving this nation so very humbly. The efforts here to recognize both is an interesting span of time. To think of the World War II members, as I gather with my colleagues in government and with so many people of interest here. Thank you, Congressman McNulty, for establishing this tradition that we absolutely need to continue. And to then County Exec Hoblock, but thank you, County Exec Breslin, for having carried forth with that tradition, and certainly Dan, thank you now for the efforts made. To the selection committee that obviously has an awesome task to distinguish the various recognitions each and every month. And thank you for your service in that capacity and all the veterans assembled here, but mostly to the family and friends of the two members of the military being honored this morning. As I was indicating, with the World War II effort made by our troops, there was great force and a resilience from the community, knowing that they were fighting for not only this nation, but freedom-loving people around the world. And to know that your dad and in his service was traveling and serving as a member that was manning the bomber, and then was shot down and held as a prisoner of war. Thinking of that, like really putting your efforts into protecting and promoting our freedom, and then to lose your own freedom in that capacity is a remarkable, noteworthy thought to draw to mind. And, knowing that he moved on to come back and utilize his freedoms to pursue a career in law. And what hits me most is the bill drafting commission service, since I had served in the State Assembly for 25 years, a service that provided each and every one of us as members of the legislature a great opportunity to put our causes into the legal language to make certain that it's etched into statute. So a great contribution through his career and his profession. And to Andrew Jr., knowing that his service came at a time where they were not truly recognized by all, a divided nation. And it's always important to say welcome home to our vets who served in Vietnam. I think our nation learned a very powerful lesson, a very heartfelt lesson to honor those troops. They served their nation because leadership pulled us into that war. And it wasn't the warrior that we should disregard and disrespect. And so, again, humble thank you and welcome home, and know that he was a hero in our eyes because of that Purple Heart that he earned, and designations that showed that he truly was committed. So we have this father and son team that really teaches us about the values worth fighting for, knowing that they were driven by their faith, driven by their heritage. Standing in this hall today is so appropriate because of their connection in so many ways, and a powerful expression of really the values that drove them to serve this nation so well. So in humble acknowledgement of their service, I ask that a flag be flown over our nation's capital in honor and memory and tribute to both Andrew Sr. and Andrew Jr., knowing that they certainly enabled us to maintain a sense of freedom in this nation, and we're all gifted by their tremendous support through the military. And my hope, my prayer is they live eternally in the arms of their Creator. God bless them both.
Thank you, Congressman. I'd like to ask State Senator Jake Ashby to speak next.
Well, good morning. It's great to join with my colleagues in federal and state and local government. I want to thank the AOH for hosting us here today. I want to thank Congressman McNulty for starting this tradition along with County Exec Havlock. And as always, it's great to see County Executive Breslin here as well, and his reputation as a veteran precedes him. And it's great to be joined by the family. And what an honor it is for me to be here and recognize two tremendous contributions. And I think it's so fitting that our JROTC students from Albany High are here, as well as Colonel Hutchinson, who himself has a fruit salad on his chest that you can see, has a little bit of experience in the military, along with Colonel Schultz from the Waterville Arsenal. But in looking at the bios here, there's obviously a lot going on in a short amount of time of service. And it's amazing to me what both men experienced during their times of service. Senior, during his service, a good portion of his service was spent in captivity. And during that time, if I'm looking at the dates correct, he went into captivity, and shortly after that, his son was born during that time. And to think about what the family must have been experiencing, you know, with the new addition of a child, knowing or not knowing what was going to happen with his father, and what the homecoming must have been like when that happened, and how it inspired Junior then to go on into the Marine Corps. That power of example, that power of service is what still resonates today in our country, and hopefully is resonating with the JROTC students here today. It's that example, it's that inspiration that brings us together even at our most divided times. The inspiration of those willing to serve and sacrifice continuously, even knowing, not knowing the outcomes of what their father may have been through during those 11 months, and willing to step up again at a time when our nation wasn't keen on recognizing service, didn't get the homecoming that so many did. And what did those Vietnam veterans do? They ensured that veterans like myself, County Executive McCoy, when we came back, we got a better welcome. They remained dedicated to their veterans. And for that, I'm forever grateful for it. And it's a real pleasure to join you here today. I do have proclamations from the New York State Senate. Thank you for letting me honor both of them today.
Thank you, Senator. Next, I'd like to ask Vice President to speak on behalf of Neil.
Distinguished guests, Mike McNulty, you and Mike Hombuck started this so many years ago. I salute you for that. In 17 years as county executive, I missed this once, and I missed that to go honor Henry Johnson in Washington. This is an unbelievable salute, not just to Andrew and Andrew Pinkney, the Pinkney family. I was a kid who grew up in Albany, and this is my military, this is my Marine Corps, and this is Andy, Big Andy, the Irish. In this morning's paper, there's an article by Billy Howard, who I knew as a kid. And it focuses on service, military service, and how important it is to remember that those who serve are service of others, as opposed to those who might call us losers and suckers. And the Pinkney family, from Big Andy to Andy, and now your son, who's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army, living down in Georgia. I guess when you go through Fort Benning and all that, you love Georgia, but I don't, that's for another day. But you have added such leaven to this community by your service. And I did know your mom best of all. Your mom and my mom were dear friends through Catholic Women's Service League and all of the other organizations that they traveled through. And they were committed to service, to the service of others. And nothing speaks louder from the exploits of both the Andys here and the Pinkney family of service. They served others. And I don't wish you remember my words as much as you remember the example they set for this community to serve others. And may we all gather periodically at events like this and wherever else we might to honor those who have committed themselves to service, the service of others. I can't help but think as I wander through communities these days how different it is from when I grew up, when service seemed almost automatic. You did that. And there's so much less of it today. But when we think about the Pinkneys, Andy, and young Andy, they shout service. And we can do that. And we can, as they did, make a difference. And may we take from this today that we too can make a difference, we too can serve. Thank you. And I have proclamations on behalf of Senator Breslin.
Thank you, Mr. Breslin. Next, I'd like to invite Assemblymember Pat Fahey.
Thank you. Some of the words I'm going to say are just bear repeating from what you've already heard this morning, but it does bear repeating. While I have not been in office for 17 years, when I entered office 12 years ago and first heard of these, I've tried to make, I don't think I've made 100% as Mr. Breslin has, but I try to make these as well because I think it's a beautiful way to start the month, to start the week, and to start the day. And that is in remembrance, in honor, and in just showing up to show our extraordinary appreciation. So I too want to thank Congressman Mike McNulty. I want to thank Congressman Tonko for continuing this effort with County Executive Dan McCoy, and of course for County Executive Mike Breslin. And I have to say, in the 12 years I've been in office, or almost 12, this is the first time it's been at the AOH, and I think that's lovely too. And what a tribute to your father, husband, and more, that it is such a huge crowd here today. I too am just old enough to remember a time when this country didn't welcome our veterans. And so I think these honor of vet ceremonies are so important because it is our way as a nation of still recognizing and making amends for when we didn't honor and the difference it must have been when your father or grandfather came home versus when your husband or some of you father came home. What a difference a generation had made. And again, that is part of why that this is so important. And we are on the cusp again. We are a very divided nation again, as we were during the Vietnam era. In some ways, many say this is the most divisive of elections tomorrow. And I pray that as divided a country we are, that we will come together as a country, because we are still facing a terribly, terribly divided world. And as Reverend Charlene said at the beginning, we pray for peace. We pray that all those who step up to serve this country, and we are forever, forever in their debt, but we pray that they stay safe and stay peaceful, and that we, the adults now, can figure out a way forward to help keep future servicemen and women from harm. And I love each month that we have young people, or most months now, that we have young people at the JROTC. We just saw them yesterday at another Veterans commemoration on 2nd Avenue, the Community Memorial site there. And it's just wonderful that they are at least learning the lessons, or hearing of the lessons, and learning that critical value, or something we all need to keep learning, and that is respect for each other. And one of my favorite mottos from the military, and that is service before self. Because I think in the end, many of us serve in many capacities. Many of us are public servants, but those who step up and put on a uniform do deserve that special gratitude, our respect, and our deep, deep thanks for all they do every time they do put on that uniform. And then, just as a mom, I have to say, I too figured out the math and saw that your mom, or grandmother, I guess, was pregnant, not knowing if her husband would return and if she'd be a single mother. What trauma that must have presented to the family. But then for her to give birth, to raise a son who, knowing the risk, still stepped up and put on that uniform. What a special family. I'm sorry I didn't know them, but please know how truly remarkable we all recognize that was, and how deeply grateful. These are the smallest of tokens, these proclamations, and I know Assemblymember John McDonald is often here with me, and also sends his deep regards and thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Fahey. Next, I'd like to invite Chairwoman of the Albany County Legislature, Joanne Cunningham. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the Albany County Legislature, and there's several of us representatives here, I'm joined by Deputy Chair Wanda Willingham. I did see her come in. We have legislators Carolyn McLaughlin and Matt Miller, Susan LaRilliard, and Ellen Rosano. And thank you all for joining me in representing the legislature. Just a few words, and I just want to share my gratitude and my thanks to the family of a father and a son who created this incredible legacy of a family after serving in World War II and then the Vietnam War. And what an incredible legacy of service that he clearly, both of them felt deeply. And then, I also was struck by the bios of, coming home and continuing your service, your life of service, through work in the New York State Senate, through work with the U.S. Postal Office, and clearly setting a marvelous example for the entire family. I also just want to say these are ceremonies that really are just a gut check for all of us to to take a pause and think about the contributions that so many individuals have just so selflessly. And, you know, my hat's off to the junior ROTC students here. You know, this is such an incredible time that we're living in, such a precarious time. We're celebrating our democracy tomorrow, and it's in large part to people like Andrew Sr. We wouldn't be at this point in our democracy without the selflessness of folks like him, both of your family members who contributed so much. I also just want to say thank you. Every time I come to these events, it truly just makes takes the wind out of you, really. And it's so appropriate, and I'm so grateful that I get to play a part in this, a small role. I want to thank former Congressman McNulty. What a wonderful legacy that you have left. I applaud my colleagues, Congressman Tonko and County Exec Dan McCoy. It's wonderful to have Mike Breslin here and all of the electeds who are sharing in this moment. But again, on behalf of the Albany County Legislature, just want to extend gratitude and appreciation, and thank you so much for your participation today.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I'd like to ask City of Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan to make a few remarks.
I will be brief because I know we want to hear from the family about these two remarkable people. I want to echo all of the things that my colleagues in government have said. I also, Frank Camiso is here as well. I'm not sure if you caught him, a county legislator. But you look at the turnout here, and it speaks to the legacy of the Pinkney family. And I am so grateful as well for their service and for all that they have done for our community. And now going forward, they will also share a day, because I'm proclaiming Monday, Monday, November 1st to be Andrew Pinkney Jr. and Andrew Pinkney Sr. Day in the city of Albany. And again, so grateful to this family. You can truly say that we live in a democracy and we have the freedom to agree to disagree because of the service of your family members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Lastly, I'd like to ask Colonel Schultz, Commander of the Waterloo Arsenal, to make a few remarks.
Hey, so good morning, esteemed political and community leaders, to everyone out there, and especially the family of Andrew Sr. and Andrew Jr. It is a privilege to be here this morning representing the men and women of Waterloo Arsenal, America's cannon and mortar factory, as we honor these two veterans and reflect on a family, honestly, that dedicated themselves to the service of this nation. They also dedicated themselves to their communities when they came home. And so I started thinking about that a little bit as I read through the bios. And, I came to a hero of mine, George Washington, and he once said to Congress, of all things, when we assumed the soldier, we did not lay aside the citizen. And so as we think about that service, we hear that we inculcate service in folks, and I would argue the opposite. People have that. All we do is take it out and embolden it and bring forth those good traits that are already there. And so when you think of citizenship, I looked up some definitions of that, right? It's a unique bond that unites people around civic ideals and a belief in the rights and freedoms. We guarantee those with our U.S. Constitution. You can further define that as it also means that you're a participatory member of that community. Now, you can go on and define community and so forth, but it means you participate. And we think about the ultimate means of participation, it is service to the nation. Now, when we think about the service of, Andrew Sr., obviously, and what that really must have been like, to get into an airplane and to fly over Germany, if you've ever studied much of that period, the risk of death or not coming home were really, really high, right? Low probability of mission success in some of those missions, and obviously he was shot down and was a POW for a good portion of his service. And then we think about joining the Marines for Andrew Jr. during the period of Vietnam, particularly when you look at that period. Again, high casualty rates, and Marines, they're taking the brunt of it.
and to go out on missions, and obviously made a sacrifice, came back with a Purple Heart. And so that's something to really consider and weigh as we sit and honor their service. It was not just that they participated, they gave a lot, and the families gave a lot as well. And of course, they came back to their community and served. Public defenders to the Postal Service. You know, those are meaningful positions when you think about just how we keep society running in general, and it means a lot. And this sense of community and citizen service continues as we see you had another service member that went on and retired from the Army as well, it sounds like. And that just really reflects a family dedicated to the ideals of what makes America great. And so, again, it's an honor to be up here. I'm inspired by their story, and will continue to be inspired throughout the day. And I just want to say again, thank you. We have something very small on behalf of the folks over at Watervliet, and we'll present that over. So thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Before we bring up the family, Peggy, I do have 2 certificates of appreciation from Jerry Collins on behalf of the Knights of Columbus. All right, at this point, we're going to invite Peggy Gaudet and Katie Pinkney up to make a few remarks to speak on behalf of the family.
Good morning. And thank you everyone for being here. This is so overwhelming. Can you hear me? I feel so very honored to be speaking to you today on my dad's service in the U.S. Army Air Corps, for which he is being recognized today. Like so many veterans that faced combat, Dad never ever talked about what went on, especially being a prisoner of war for almost 11 months. The only thing he ever said was that they were not mistreated, and that at that point in the war, which was 1944 through 45, the Germans themselves had nothing. So I had nothing to talk to you about in terms of his service, as he never spoke about it. So I had a box of correspondence between my dad and my grandmother while he was a prisoner of war. I thought maybe I could grab some tidbits of information to share, but I really didn't, because Dad's postcards pretty much were basically very cryptic, and it sounded like he was at summer camp, really. The first one he wrote, mind you, they were shot down, I think it was July 21st of 1944. And as someone mentioned, that, you know, the mail back then was so slow, and the communication that our family didn't know my father's situation for 3 weeks. Once he was shot down and became a prisoner of war, they didn't know if he had survived or not. But so once, you know, my grandmother received a card. This is his first postcard. It said, "Dear Mom, am well and unhurt. Met many friends and am being well treated. Don't write. This is a temporary address. Give my love to all and try to cheer Alice," who is my mother. "Everything is fine. Hope to see you all soon. We'll write from permanent camp. Don't worry." That was August 2nd, and it was received November 1st. So just to give you an idea. This one was written October 16th. Dear Mom, just a few lines to let you know everything is fine. Food is excellent. 8 Notre Dame classmates here with me. Am now living in new barracks. Don't worry, we'll be home soon. Love, Bud. That was how he was referred to. So the last one, Dear Mom, weather here is very lovely this time of year. Am playing quite a lot of football and am getting heavier. Give my love to the girls and baby. Keep smiling. Love, Bud. He said he was getting heavier. When my dad came home, he had lost over 50 pounds and needed a total dental replacement because of the malnourishment. Just an indicator how, they didn't share their troubles with home. Anyway. So what I can share with you is the way Dad lived his life post-war as a father, son, husband, grandfather, brother, uncle, friend, and colleague. Because it was the way he lived his day-to-day life that enabled us to witness what a true hero is made of. And I believe the many of the seeds of Dad's heroism were planted during his service and experience in the Army. Having to parachute in a moment's notice from their B-24 bomber, which exploded behind them just seconds after evacuating, landing in Germany territory, being captured and becoming a prisoner of war for 11 months, away from his family, his country, and comforts of home. It had a profound and lasting impact on our father. Then 26 years old, with a young wife at home, expecting their first child, which was Andy. And the ironic thing or interesting point is that my dad learned of Andy's birth from another POW who was also from Albany, who got word from his wife that my mom had a baby. So, small world. I believe that these experiences empowered Dad with a true love and reverence of life itself. He never took a day of life for granted. No matter what the weather, snow, torrential rain, to Dad, it was a beautiful day. And he was a man of deep faith, which enabled him throughout his life to survive unbearable hardships. And through his example, Dad taught us that even the most profound losses are survivable. He had that wisdom to always find the silver lining. And Dad was a true patriot and so proud to serve his country. And he would never, ever think of himself as a hero. He thought serving his country was his duty, and he was happy to do so. I believe he felt the true heroes were those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, like so many of Dad's comrades. And I believe Dad kept them in his prayers and heart years after he returned home. And I say this because going through Dad's belongings after he passed, we found almost in a hidden compartment in his wallet, a folded up piece of paper, which happened to be a torn piece from a book, and I'll actually show you. It's the famous poem, In Flanders Fields. Did you? The poem is written from the perspective of the soldiers who died in battle and buried in Flanders, which is in Belgium. It speaks to the duty of the living to carry on the fight and honor the sacrifice of those who gave their lives. I think Dad, being one of the fortunate ones to survive, instilled him with a moral obligation to help others in need. And this was never so evident than at his wake, where so many friends and family and neighbors and strangers waited for hours in line to, of course, extend their condolences, but to share stories after story about how Dad had lent them a helping hand at some point in their lives. It was so comforting to us because it kept him alive for a few more hours. In addition to his love of this wonderful country, Dad loved Albany. Everything in Albany was great. Only to be rivaled by Waterville, because that's where Mom was from and her family, who Dad was crazy about. To live in Albany, you know, was the ultimate. And when we were kids and small and driving our mother crazy, Dad would give her a break, herd us in the car, and take us for an Albany adventure, which would entail either going to the port, where we could see the boats and the ships, or out to Albany Airport to watch the planes land, up to Thatcher Park, to the Outlook, where Dad would make up stories about the legend of Indian Joe. Or my favorite, we would drive down to Broadway to the warehouse that houses the Nipper, the big dog, and he would make up stories as to how the dog got up there. But, you know, you never had to go further than Albany for an adventure. We were watching daytime TV together, and which Dad would never do. He would watch the news and that would be it. But we were watching, it was a talk show, and the host was interviewing his guest, who was multi-talented, a singer, a writer, performer, actor, and the host posed the question to the guest, you know, how would you like best to be remembered? And I don't remember the answer, but I posed that question to Dad and said, Dad, how would you like to best be remembered? You know, your charm, your good looks, your golfing, and without skipping a beat, he said, just to be remembered is enough. And had he known that today, pretty much 30 years later, that he would be remembered with such distinction and among such distinct company, he would truly, truly be overwhelmed and humbled and honored. And so I, on behalf of our family, thank you for this wonderful honor, and thank all of you. It's truly overwhelming. And
my late husband, Andrew M. Pinkney Jr., was a humble, kind, and generous man. He was proud to be a Marine, as it was his duty to serve his country. He never discussed much about his service with me or our son Drew, and for that matter, not with too many other people that I'm aware of. We do know from a telegram received by his parents at their home on Lenox Avenue that Andy was injured on December 21st, 1967, in the vicinity of Quang Nam, Republic of Vietnam. He sustained several fragmentation wounds from a hostile grenade while on patrol. The casualties of war left a mark on Andy, both physically and emotionally. The reasons he never wanted to discuss his tour in Vietnam. We know he was the sole survivor of his platoon on that dreadful day. After many months of recovering from his wounds, Andy traveled to many states to pay his respects to the families of his comrades who were killed alongside him. Andy never wanted to be recognized or called a hero, although in fact he was. The U.S. Postal Service, where Andy was employed for 20 years, recognized Andy and 2 other Purple Heart veterans at the Troy Post Office in 2003 with the Purple Heart postage stamp. They had a small ceremony, and Andy had a really tough time accepting the fact that they were honoring him with that stamp, and he was embarrassed, and I couldn't understand why he was embarrassed. And he said, I just didn't want to be recognized. In 2013, I was contacted by Thomas Doyne, also a Vietnam veteran, who was the chair of the Waterford Memorial Day Parade. And the committee nominated Andy to be the Grand Marshal. Of course, I had to go home and let Andy know that he was nominated, and I knew he would reject, and he did. But it was an honor to be nominated for that. We are here today to honor and show respect to Andy. He was someone to appreciate and to be grateful for. Andy is our forever hero. If it wasn't for men like Andy, we wouldn't have the freedom we have today. The Pinkney family is incredibly honored that Andy is being recognized today posthumously by the Honor a Veteran program here in Albany County. Thank you all so much for coming.
Please rise for the playing of taps in honor of the Pinkney family. All right, thank you. At this point, we're going to ask the Albany JROTC to secure the flag that was provided by Congressman Tonko. Bravo Company Commander can take that. You will raise the flag outside in a few moments. Thank you.